What's going on, everybody? It's the Vendetta live show. Today we've got myself, James Herrick, and Chad Bauman. We're back, and Chad, yesterday we recorded the lead word, so we've put in a good amount of work with each other this week.
Yeah, yeah, we're getting shit done. It was supposed to go with somebody else, but he canceled. I guess something came up. I didn't ask too many questions. I was like, okay, can't do it. Whatever.
Yeah, stuff comes up. It's no big deal. So I'm here. I enjoy doing it, and I haven't done it yet this week, so might as well roll. So we talked a little bit beforehand, and the first thing we've got is Zach Stacy. The video resurfaced today of him and his girlfriend's altercation because he got 6 months, I believe it was, for his domestic issue. And Le'Veon Bell spoke up and talked about how I think he put up a tweet and basically said, "Hey, instead of putting this guy in jail, we should give him 15 minutes with John Jones in the UFC octagon." So you just want to go ahead and give your thoughts on that. And what do you think of Mr. Le'Veon Bell?
Uh, One, I don't think that's an entirely terrible idea. Not specific, and I'll get into this a little bit in a second, but not specific to John Jones. But yeah, like if you want to be like a domestic abuser, I mean, yeah, just throw you in there with like a UFC fighter and just let him beat the shit out of you. Now, I mean, obviously that comes with challenges if you are in fact a UFC fighter, like because then you're just gonna like go fight your coworker like normal, right? Um, but no, I would say yeah, if like you're beating up kids, beating up women, or I guess vice versa. If you're women beating up dudes in relationship, pick on somebody your own size. If you
Yeah,
got it like that.
I've
Um,
heard I've heard far worse ideas. I like it. I'm with you.
yeah. I do don't I wonder though, did anybody tell Le'Veon Bell like the irony of him specifically saying John Jones, considering John Jones' past with domestic issues?
Yeah, John Jones has his fair share of history too. And I looked at the comments of his Twitter posts, and there was like the biggest chunk was people being like, "Yeah, I'm with this. I like this." And then there was like a handful of people being like, "Hey, does does this guy know about John Jones?" Because John Jones, I mean, someone tweeted, "Be careful, John Jones might give him tips." And I was like, "Oh no, oh no, that's a bad one." But there was actually a show a while back. It was Jason Miller. He had a show called Bully Beatdown on MTV in like the early 2000s. And they would go to like high schools and they would find bullies and they'd make them fight Jason Miller, who was a UFC fighter. And he would just beat the crap out of these kids that were like bullying other kids in high schools.
That sounds familiar, but the only thing that I can think of right now is like I don't know if you ever saw it. It was I don't know if it was on MTV, but it was like a similar show, but it was called Pros versus Joes, where
Yep.
basically it was like a very similar concept. They would have like random people like go up against like professional athletes. Um, but I want to. I feel like I have seen that show before, Bully Beatdown, because I don't know if maybe it was a different format, but I definitely remember something where I was watching a show and some random dude like who was bullying somebody else had to go fight like a professional fighter. So I
Yeah.
don't know if it was the same show or if maybe it was just a different show with the
Yeah.
same format.
It might have been the same show. Fun fact, I think it was Jake Shields was came on as like a guest UFC fighter to like go and fight one of these kids, and he lost the round because he's a big grappler, and like he didn't grapple at all. He was just gonna strike with this bully, and the bully ended up landing a couple decent shots on him and was like beating up on him for a minute, and then the next round I think he went out there and took him down, but the only UFC fighter to like lose a round and bully beatdown was Jake Shields. So that's a
I,
very embarrassing fun fact.
yeah, like could you just imagine like all like you go show up to work at your or I guess not work, but you show up to your gym like the next day and it's like, oh look who got beat up by the schoolyard bully. Like
Dude,
um
they a couple guys do that too. Well, they'll have guys who come in who like talk trash on Twitter, and they'll like throw them in the ring, and they'll be like, "Sign the waiver, and we can figure it out if you really want to keep talking trash." It's like
yeah.
Kevin Holland and Derek Lewis, and they'll just beat the crap out of these guys.
I the thing is though, like the funny thing for me is like I want to like be like I don't remember like I don't have the tweet pulled up, but I feel like Le'Veon Bell when he tweeted it, he tagged John Jones in the tweet. And I'm just wondering if like John Jones is like reading the tweet like, dude, like what the fuck? You're gonna bring me into this? Like
In prep,
nobody remembers nobody's talking about my shit. Don't bring it back up.
yeah, in preparation for fight week, right before like one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year, John Jones is headlining, and Le'Veon Bell just indirectly throws him into all this. I think he might have
And
deleted the. Oh wait, no, he didn't tag him. I just
oh, he
looked.
didn't tag him.
No,
But
that
you
would
know
have
what
been
though?
funny.
Now, like, I didn't even when I first like when we talked about it. When it's like I just wanted to talk about like the irony of him saying like specifically picking out John Jones
Hmm.
amid his domestic abuse allegations. Like I don't even know if it's considered allegations. I think he actually like was found guilty. He just didn't do any jail time,
He's
or he pled
he
guilty or something like
yeah
that.
he didn't get. I think she dropped the domestic charges, but the police were called at like a scene
Yeah, I
where
know
his
he spent some
girlfriend
time in jail
reported it.
for it. I do know that.
Yeah,
Like
he's
he
got
was
his
like
fair
in the
share.
county lockup for like a few days at least.
Hmm.
But I just like and it just kind of brought to my mind like the whole broader thing, like fucking the shit that happened with Dana White, um, John Jones, like Dana White, like it has like he's on record in the past saying like if you hit your wife or significant other, you might as well just quit because you're not fighting again. But then John Jones like John Jones is like, oh, he's got like you just mentioned before, he's got a huge title fight this weekend. Dana White slaps his wife. I mean, granted, Dana White's wife slapped him first, but I'm not here to get into the semantics of who's a wife beater and who's not. But like
Yeah,
per his own words, it's like you should quit, bro. No, nobody treats this harder than I treat myself. So I've already like punished myself enough, bro. That doesn't fucking count.
yeah. His words too were once you lay your hands on a woman, or there's no coming back from laying your hands on a woman. So it's like rather no matter what your opinion is, he's going against his own opinion. So it's like
Exactly.
that's number one.
Like now,
And
like this whole
then
like tweet is like just bringing up like the hypocrisy of like the UFC. Like you pay your fighters like two pennies, right? 2 pennies for a win, you get one if you lose, and then like Dana White just doesn't follow through with his fucking word.
yep. It's the UFC is like in terms of I guess other sports leagues are like that too, where the NFL has their issues and like the NBA has their issues, but like the UFC has a little bit more control over how they handle their own issues. Like the NFL has some level of like uniformity. The UFC can kind of twist and bend rules however they want, which is kind of unique to them, which other leagues cannot do that at all.
Yeah, and like I don't know. I guess I didn't plan on getting into like the UFC just being a really shitty organization, but like even like the Conor McGregor shit, like when he was like I forget the dude's name, but when he threw like the chair at the bus and it got glass in the guy's fucking eye and fucked up his
Hmm.
whole like I think he's fighting again now, but like I know he didn't have like a fight for like almost an entire year because of that. Like Conor McGregor, like no penalties other than like he got arrested. So like that was it. And then I think he paid a fine, but like nothing from the UFC. So like I don't know. Dana White, apparently trash human being.
Yeah, there's Connor got into some stuff recently where he was like partying on a yacht and some girl came out and said that that he basically like punched her and like she had to jump off the yacht because she was afraid of Connor, and then like she had to like swim to shore basically, and it's like that became a whole thing in Ireland. She eventually dropped that suit, but it's like the amount of stuff that goes on in the UFC, and that's like the biggest star in the UFC, like, and that didn't get that much like broad media coverage. Could you imagine if like
I didn't even
Tom
hear about
Brady
that.
did that? Yeah, could you
I didn't
imagine
even
if
hear
Tom
about that.
Brady did that? Like,
Well,
it's just
fuck, dude.
weird
We've been
how it
hearing about
doesn't
Tom
matter.
Brady's divorce. We've been hearing about Tom Brady's divorce like all fucking football season. Like, and
Mhm,
I like until you mentioned that shit with Conor McGregor, this is the first I'm hearing of it.
mhm. Yeah, it's crazy.
Haven't seen it on Twitter. Haven't fucking Facebook, Instagram, nothing.
It's that goes to show how small the UFC is. Like, I always like to talk. Like, I'm a big UFC guy. MMA is my favorite sport, and I like to think that the sport is growing. And then that happens, and I'm like, all right, the sport isn't actually growing. Like, it's growing a little bit, but it's still so far in popularity from the NFL and all these other sports.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, if you're comparing it to the NFL, but I mean, also compared to the NFL, the UFC started in like 1995, and the
Mm-hmm.
NFL's been going since like 1930. So I
Yeah.
mean, I like that's kind of hard to compare it that way. But I
Oh yeah.
mean, from where the UFC started, it's fucking huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I mean too, like the whole like thing with the UFC where like back in the day they didn't like they had like literally no rules. And
Yeah.
then like to what they have now where like yes there's rules but it's such a watered down product of what they used to have where it was literally like, oh, is this guy gonna fucking die in the octagon?
Yeah, and it's like they almost shot themselves in the foot with their own like original marketing. Like they were marketing themselves as like, oh, we're gonna be this big extreme like sport where anything goes, and then the government was like, no, 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 we're gonna make that illegal, and then they had to like recover from that. So it's like the UFC has been through so much like crap trying to get started, and a lot of it's been their own fault. But in fairness to them, they built what they did build that we have now. So I guess it worked. It worked itself out. So
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I honestly think I know he's not like he doesn't own it anymore. He's just like he's kind of like the figurehead. I forget what his exact position is, but if you're the fucking guy that owns it, like how do you not punish Dana White like at all?
that's a
Like
good point.
what the I mean, obviously it's different circumstances, but like could you imagine if fucking Ed Schneider like it came out that he was beating his wife? Like you would never fucking like there would be some kind of penalty with it. The shit in the NFL with like Robert Kraft when he got like caught getting handies at the fucking uh Thai massage place. Like
It's
but
it's
you got your like that like if Roger Goodell was fucking beating his wife, like it would be like, oh dude, you can't be here.
mhm.
Like they would at least send him away. Like they might bring him back, but they would at least send him away at first. Wouldn't be like, oh, you wouldn't have Roger Goodell in the press conference. Oh, I hold myself so much accountable that no one can punish me like me. Like fuck that.
And he was like, yeah, I'm not, the biggest punishment that I can have is that I'm now known as someone who beats their wife. And it's like, well, yeah, that shouldn't be punishment A. That shouldn't be the number one thing that happens. Like,
Well,
no
no, that's not even the
suspension, no
punishment.
anything.
That's just the side effect of beating your wife. Like, like that's
Yeah,
not the punishment.
yeah,
That's just a
it's
side effect.
crazy. And off your point, like they could have like Dana doesn't own the UFC anymore. Before he only had a small share in it, and his buddies owned it. Now his buddies don't even own it anymore. They're owned by Endeavor, which is like a media corporation. So they could have if Endeavor wanted to, they could have suspended him. And the like he's not as hands-on now as he used to be. Hunter Campbell used to run so much of that, or Hunter Campbell now is kind of behind the scenes running it, doing Dana's job. So it's not like the UFC can't operate without Dana. Like the place wouldn't collapse if they had to put Dana off to the side.
Yeah, and I would have to imagine there's better marketing guys out there. Like I know not everybody likes him, but like fucking Joe Rogan, throw him like put him in Dana White's position. I mean, like I said, I know not everybody agrees with him. I like he's got controversy with like his podcast that he does on Spotify, but I mean, I know I mean, I guess he also used to say the N word all the time too. So maybe I guess no, not maybe not Joe Rogan. That's probably a bad example.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of cut out a little bit, so I didn't hear your whole point. But yeah, Joe Rogan.
Oh no, we lost James.
Has in the scope of the sport.
Oh, you're back. You cut out
I'm
again.
Yeah. But like what I was basically just saying was like Rogan, even though he's done stuff like his position in the sport as a commentator is much much smaller than what Dana's doing as like the head of the company basically.
True, that's fair.
Um, kind of moving away. Like it's hard to move on once you talk about like domestic
Oh man, we lost James again.
But w- w- um,
Yo, since you're going in and out, you might want to try just turning off your camera because sometimes that helps.
oh really?
Yeah, because you keep going in and out.
Um,
Oh, now it's just my face. That's it. I think we just straight up lose James like entirely. Oh shit. Oh, he's back.
all right, we'll see if it keeps buffering me. I'll turn my camera off.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how big of a problem we have here. But what I was saying is it's kind of like hard to like pivot and talk about something else once you like spend a bunch of time talking about domestic abuse, because now you're like, all right, let's segue over to this topic or that topic. But
Yeah.
one of the other things that I'm kind of interested in with the UFC this weekend, I know we're both wrestlers. You're a little bit more of a, well, I shouldn't say a little bit, quite a bit more accomplished of a wrestler than I am. You wrestled in college, I didn't. But Bo Nickel is 3 national championships in wrestling, and I am absolutely pumped that he is making that jump and entertaining wrestler. So I'm stoked to see what he can do in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not his first like ever. It's not his first professional fight because I think he did like a couple Bellator fights, I think, or one of those other uh um MMA promotions. But I think he's undefeated in those promotions, and I think his wins like all I think both I think he's 2-0 if I'm not mistaken, and both wins are by submission. Um, which makes sense because like he was like when he wrestled in college, like he was so fucking slippery. Like there would be times where I'd be like, man, he's about to get taken down, or oh, I can't believe they're about to pin him, and the next thing you know, he's like pinning the other guy, and I'm like, oh shit, I don't even
Yeah.
know how he fucking did that.
His finals match against, I think it was Mark Hall. I might be tripping up on who he wrestled, but he's like he almost pulled guard in a wrestling match, and he's like going to his back, and then you're like, oh, Bo Nichols is gonna like lose this, like he's gonna get pinned in the finals, and then he is just able to flip it and get on top. So it's like Bo is like one of the most incredible wrestlers that I think I've watched, just from like some of the things he can do, the talent he has. And it's like he would have wrestled in the Olympics if it weren't for the fact that the dude that was going to the Olympics from the US in his weight class won gold. So it's like I don't want to say Bo would have also won gold, but it's like he could have at least showed up if his weight class wasn't absolutely stacked.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I don't even know who he's fighting, but like I like just watching him wrestle. Like, and I mean, we've seen with guys like Khabib and Khabib's buddy that looks just like him. I can't remember his name.
Islam.
Uh, that Russian, the other Russian guy. Um, like it's not easy, obviously, to win if you're a wrestler in the UFC, but I mean, it makes it easy. Like it helps because like you can control so much of the match. Like even like GSP, who wasn't like a wrestler, like he didn't have a wrestler background, but he was still a great grappler, and he was really good on the mat too. Um, I think just I would just have to imagine that like it's whoever he's fighting, unless they're also like a world class wrestler. Like I would have to imagine he's probably going to get another win.
Yeah, the UFC basically gave him a setup here. They put him as the first fight on a John Jones pay-per-view, and they gave him possibly the worst fighter in the middleweight division. I don't want to say he's the worst, but he's bottom 5. And the dude, when he signed to fight Bo Nickel, had no idea who Bo Nickel was. He was like, yeah, they offered me this guy named Bo, and I accepted it because I'll fight anybody. And I called my coach, told him we were fighting Bo Nickel, and he got all urgent about, oh, we need to get in some wrestlers. We need to start wrestling. And I was like, I don't know why he's so urgent. And then someone broke the news to him. Hey, dude, you're fighting one of the best wrestlers on the planet, and he's gonna get messed up. The UFC's given Bo
Yeah.
Nickel in here. And a
I
highlight.
honestly, that's kind of like just even talking about like the Bo Nickel thing, like but you talk about like like fighting one of like a really good wrestler, especially a guy like Bo Nickel who's like really done well at like the college ranks and Um, it's I always think it's like, how do you prepare for that? Like it's not like you can just go out and grab a guy and be like, okay, yeah, he's a good Bo Nickel substitute. Like they're like it's almost like why even bother practicing the wrestling when it's like there's no way you're going to be able to replicate what he does, because like I said, watching him wrestle when he was at Penn State, I was like there's no way. Like obviously I was only a D3 wrestler, I wasn't a D1 wrestler, but like I was like, I watching him wrestle was like, there's no way he's going to get away with doing that. Oh no, he did. This is just how this is just him. He did. It kind of reminded me of this kid that I wrestled with when I was at Ursinus. This kid named Karch, who for the life of me I couldn't figure out how he did it. There's a thing in wrestling, you never step over a wizard. For whatever reason, he could do that. Like he did it to everybody, and I never figured out like why do you not get pinned when you do that? That's like when you watch Bo Nickel wrestle. Why do you not get pinned when you do that? Because he does everything you're not supposed to do, and he ends up pinning the other guy.
Yeah. And I like going back to what you said about like preparing, it's so tough because, like you said, you can't bring in anybody. And if you do, like or Alexander Volkanovski did a good job against Islam Makhachev. He went out there and got Craig Jones to go out there and try and mimic him. But it's like that's a UFC champion who was already friends with one of the best grapplers in the world. So it's like he got lucky basically in just knowing the perfect guy. It's like 99% of fighters, you can't find that one person to go and mimic them and even have a chance. Like I don't know, work on the striking maybe and just hope you can catch him with an uppercut as for a takedown or something. It's
Yeah,
tough.
give him the good old George Masvidal Ben Askren treatment.
Mm-hmm. It's a perfect example actually, because like if Ben Askren gets a hold of him, that fight's probably done. But he couldn't get a hold of him, so
Yeah.
credit to Jorge, I guess. He's gone downhill from there, but credit to him, he got that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is too, like they kind of like I mean, they talked about this before, but like with that one, it was like basically, oh, we just watched tape and we first of all, I've said this before, when Ben Askren took that shot, it was probably like the most fucking JV level freshman first time wrestler shot I've ever seen in my life. There was absolutely like it was 90-degree angle bent at the waist when he head looking straight at the fucking canvas when he took that shot. But anyway, Masvidal even said like, "Oh yeah, we noticed on film like whenever you rush him, he automatically goes into wrestler mode. So we knew that we could catch him. So I mean, also like I mean, I don't know. I'm not paid to watch fucking Bo Nickel film and break it down like that. You got to catch something hopefully like that on the tape and be like, oh, we can exploit that.
Yeah, and like with the Askren thing, it's like he was panic wrestling because like he saw him coming. It's like if you can make a good wrestler panic wrestle, then they lose their technique, or make them tired wrestle. You got to make them panic wrestle, or make them wrestle tired. Good
Right.
luck. It's like neither of those are easy to do. You can say it like they're easy to do, but nobody can really go out there. Ben Askren just wasn't really comfortable with his hands as much, so he kind of panic wrestled a little bit more than some other elite wrestlers would. So
Yeah.
I wish Jamie picked luck. Not picking him, betting against him. He's got a tough job in front of him.
You cut out again. You cut
Oh,
out again.
geez. Basically, I wish him luck. I wish him luck, but I do not think he's getting a win here.
Yeah, I agree.
And then to some big news in NFL. I shouldn't say big news, relatively big news. Tony Pollard signed that franchise tag today, or the Cowboys gave him the franchise tag today. So back Tony Pollard on the tag.
Would you? Sorry, you cut out again.
Basically, just what do you think of the Cowboys bringing back Tony Pollard on the franchise tag?
I honestly no, that was like a good move by them. I think you had to. I don't know. I mean, you could talk about Zeke playing injured or whatever, but I mean, it was obvious Zeke kind of lost a little bit of his pop this year. He said that he rushed back from injury. I mean, and it is what it is, but I feel like it's always something with Zeke. Like the last couple years, like oh he rushed back from injury. He had this going on. This is why he didn't do as good. But I mean, it was obvious who the more explosive player was. Um, and it wasn't Zeke. It was very clearly Tony Pollard. And I think you have to franchise him, get a deal done if you can. But I mean, they hurt themselves because they're paying Zeke all that money, and he's not producing. So,
Mhm.
They try to and it kind of hurts Pollard because like you can see them clearly taking the ball out of Pollard's hands so they can give it to Zeke so they can try to justify his contract. And then I mean they got a goof for a head coach. I mean, talking about since we're talking about the running backs on the team, we might as well talk about McCarthy's comments where he was like, "Oh, I don't want to score a lot of," basically said, "I don't want to score a lot of points. I want to run the ball." And like, yeah, but you can play defense and score a lot of points, dude. Like you
Mhm.
can win time of possession and score points. I mean, look at the Eagles. Like, yes, there were a lot of games where they ran the ball very effectively this year and didn't have to pass it as much. But I mean, there were also games where Jalen Hurts threw for like 450 yards and they won and they blew the team out and their
Mhm.
defense looked rested. So it's not like you can't do both. And I mean, that's why I don't know. That's why I don't think the Cowboys are going to win anything anytime soon because they've got a bad coach and they've always been fiscally irresponsible when it comes to paying players. And I don't know. It would be hard for the. I mean, obviously, you want to keep Pollard, but I don't see him taking a pay cut to stay with Dallas, so they can continue to pay Zeke.
Mhm.
So either Zeke has to move this year, and then you extend Pollard off of his franchise tag, um, or like you try to keep. I don't know. Keep franchising Pollard every year, but that's just going to piss him off because like there's no job security there. So
Yeah. And I agree with pretty much everything you said there. Like Tony Pollard, I think, is obviously the better running back, and I hope they get a deal done now because like one of the reasons the Zeke deal hurts is because he's now ran through. Like once a running back has too much on his tires, like you're going to see a drop in production. You ideally don't want to put a running back through the franchise tag where if you can't sign Tony Pollard to that long-term deal right now, 2 or 3 years down the road, if you push this back but eventually get it, it's like you're now having that. If you're in the business now and then try and keep him for years while he's still fresh, and then hopefully producing, which is what they've got with Zach or
you're still
Zeke
going
right
in and
now.
out. You might want to try turning off your camera. See if that
Yeah,
you're still
I'll
like in
drop
and
it.
out.
Hopefully this works a little better. But basically what I was saying was like, if you're paying a running back, like pay him early and get those 3 years. Say you extend them 3 years, have those 3 years be now, right? You don't want to give him the franchise tag a year and then keep pushing back that payday. And now you're looking at the end of the contract isn't as strong, which is kind of the deal where he's got too much tread on the tires and it's not working out for him as well. So you try to want to avoid that situation happening again.
I honestly, I just looked it up. I didn't even realize Zeke is only 27. What? It
Ooh.
feels like he's only. It feels like he's been in the league for so much longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It feels like he's for someone that's only been in the league. I don't know. Was it 5 years now? I think he was drafted in. What is he drafted in 2016? Yeah. No, that's not 5 years. That's
7, 5.
yeah,
Yeah.
7-ish, 6, 7, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or it might be coming up on 7. Um, for a guy that's been in the league only like 7 years, and I know running backs age a little bit differently, but that feels like it feels like it's been a lot more for him. Like I feel like it's almost every year he's gotten some kind of injury, or maybe it's not even just injuries. It's also his issue with like his like he got suspended the one year, and then like that suspension whole thing lasted almost an entire year because he kept he kept fighting the suspension, and then
Yep.
finally got suspended by like week 7. He was taken out. Um, it's been a lot. It feels like it's been so much longer with Zeke than it's only been like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, and a lot of those years in the league, he was like getting a lot of carries. It's not like he was, a player where, he was just an average running back on the team. He was getting a lot of carries. He was putting through a lot of work where it's like that's gonna take it out earlier, take you out earlier. Similar thing happened to Gurley, where I think Gurley was a little bit earlier, but he goes through those injuries, great player, and he becomes a not great player very fast. And like you said, Cowboys are in a very bad spot because you know, not only do they have Zeke, they're paying too much, they're paying Dak too much. They just overall are, for what they have on that roster and how much they're paying these guys, I don't see them fulfilling like any serious playoff, accomplishment.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest with you too, like, and Zeke might. I mean, he may not be out of his prime yet. I mean, he came back from injury last year or whatever. I, honestly, I would try to move Zeke. Like, what if you've got Pollard, who I think is the better player at this point.
Mhm.
I think because not only I feel like Pollard runs a lot like Zeke does. Maybe Zeke used in his heyday used to run a little bit harder, but I, Pollard definitely has more wiggle to him. He's not afraid of contact by any means, and he's more of a threat out of the backfield. Um, Acceleration wise, he can hit the hole faster than Zeke does. I I wouldn't. I think you can move on from Zeke and get the draft picks that you can get now while you can still get them. I mean, obviously, trying to find somebody that's gonna date you with that contract is maybe a little bit rough, but I would try to get what I could get for Zeke right now, especially while I have the guy like Tony Pollard on the team. Where like losing Zeke, I mean, even if you lose Zeke, it's not gonna really hurt you because you got Tony Pollard.
Yeah, I'm with you. And like, even if they can trade him and hopefully not like eat a bunch of that contract, if they can just, even if they don't get a bunch of draft capital, if they can just avoid eating that contract, it may be beneficial to them because that can maybe alleviate some of those cap issues. And, I do think Tony Pollard is the better running back too. The point you made about acceleration, hitting the hole, at least right now, I think probably every GM in the league, if you were to, ask blindly, which player would you rather have, financials equal, I bet they all say Tony Pollard, which is a shame because I've got nothing against Zeke, really good player, but I think that's just the fact of the matter we're looking at right now.
Right.
And then the other running back that's going through the franchise tag stuff, Josh Jacobs, a lot different of a situation there where they're going to franchise tag him. They haven't yet, but the report was they'll franchise tag him if they can't reach a long-term contract. So it sounds like he's going to be a Raider one way or the other. A lot different of a situation, though, where that Raiders team, I'm not sure how optimistic I'd be about them. Still, Josh Jacobs, I don't think is a player you want to see leave the team.
I mean, if you're a Raiders fan, obviously not. You don't want to lose Josh Jacobs, but I feel like it's kind of like a similar situation to what's going on with Zeke. Like you have a guy who you can get a lot of assets for, um, and like keeping him hurts your team more than getting rid of him does. Because Josh Jacobs, like he is one of the best running backs in the league right now. Like I mean, argument can be made for top 5. He's clearly top 10. Um, I would say he's probably in that 5, 6, 7 range, maybe. But like I said, argument can be made for top 5. I think that
Mm-hmm.
if you trade him, like franchise him, trade him, and move on, get some. If you can get a first round pick, maybe get a first rounder, second rounder, or something. Because you don't have a quarterback. They're already talking about getting rid of Derek Carr. Um, Talk about bringing in Aaron Rodgers, and yes, Aaron Rodgers is a great player, but how long is Aaron Rodgers going to be a great player for? Like, not everybody's Tom Brady. Not everybody's playing until they're 50 years old, right? Even if they do get Aaron Rodgers, They don't get Aaron Rodgers, who is going to be your quarterback. So you got a lot that you got to kind of rebuild right now. Their defense isn't great. Think they got like Max Crosby. No, is that a hockey player? Who is their defensive end? I can't
Uh,
remember.
I'm pretty sure that's Max Crosby. Last name
Okay, yeah, I don't know
definitely
why.
Crosby.
Yeah, I know I know it's Crosby too, but
Yeah, it's Max.
I
I
was
just
like,
googled it. It's Max.
okay, cool. But yeah, Max Crosby, like he's pretty much their best player on defense, and I mean they're not really good on defense. They haven't been good on defense, and the whole time Derek Carr was there, they let him down on defense basically consistently every year. There's
Yep.
plenty of times where Derek Carr would win. Derek Carr would basically win them the game, and then the defense would just give up a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be like, oh, Derek Carr sucks. Well, no, he had 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, and yes, he threw 2 interceptions, but at the same time, he also scored what could have been the game-winning touchdown with 30
Mm-hmm.
seconds left, and you gave up a touchdown at the end of the game. That's not on Derek Carr. But I mean, they're moving on from him.
Yep.
Wide receiver wise, Devontae Adams is there. But like I said, who's throwing him the ball?
Yep.
And then their offensive line it's about average. It's not
Mm-hmm.
great. It's not bad, but it could be improved. It could be a lot better.
Yeah.
So
They've got a lot of pieces that they've got to fix. I agree with you, and I like the point you made about Aaron Rodgers because not only is Aaron Rodgers regressing, but if Aaron Rodgers couldn't win in Green Bay this year, you're not going to convince me that he's going to win with the Raiders, barring massive changes next year. Like I think that Green Bay team, had its flaws, but still had some really good players on the defensive side. You still had Aaron Jones on the offensive side. Receivers, they had some guys who they had some young guys making some mistakes, but Christian Watson's a good receiver. He's a good player. So they had a better team than what we'll see Aaron Rodgers with this upcoming year if he were to go to Vegas. And I like the point you made about the Raiders potentially trading Jacobs, where that's not something I really considered. But if you can get assets for Josh Jacobs, I'm with you because I wouldn't want to see him walk for nothing. But if you can get anything, I mean that can help you. That can be something that can help you 2 years down the road when you're starting to put some pieces together. Some extra assets, some younger players. It'd be very beneficial.
yeah. And also by the way, Josh McDaniels was a terrible head coach this year. He was a terrible coach. Like just nothing worked for Oakland this year. Like he was bad. His play call wasn't good. So I mean he might be back in New England, 2 years from now. And then that's 2 more years on Josh Jacobs that you can't get back.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Where anytime a New England coach fails, they always do get to go right back to New England. So it's almost like no risk. You fail, you still have a job. So credit to McDaniels and Patricia. Probably shouldn't have a job, but hey, he gets one right back with Bill Belichick there, and also Carr. I'm interested to see where he goes because, like you said, I don't think he's terrible. There's a lot of games that he could have won that team. I think there are some good landing spots for him out there. I don't know if it's going to be New York or if it's going to be maybe the Saints, but I'm interested to see where he goes because I'm not sure that he's out. I don't think he's an elite quarterback by any means, but I think he can still do some things and help a team win that is kind of borderline.
Trey, we turned Herrick's camera off because he was freezing up a whole lot.
The Wi-Fi has been bad this afternoon for some reason.
Yeah.
But for Derek Carr, are there any teams that you'd like to see him on? Like, whether that be the Jets or any other team, is there any team that stands out as like a potential option?
I mean, I wouldn't want to see him on the Jets because I feel like the Jets are bad. Well, I mean, I guess Brees Hall makes them better because they were pretty good before he got hurt. But I don't think I would want to see him on the Jets because I don't think it's like I would just don't want to wish anybody on the Jets. Like I wouldn't want my worst enemy to have to play for the Jets. I don't know. Like there's quarterback stuff going on in San Fran. I mean, they may throw their hand in there because like there's stuff swirling around that maybe Trey Lance isn't the guy. I mean, obviously Brock Purdy had the year that he had. So, but I mean, obviously they're talking about QB competition. So I don't think they're sold on Brock Purdy either. Um, let's see. I mean, Washington, I think they have Sam
Mm.
Howell. I think they liked how he played at the end of the year, but I mean, they may still not be ready to be like, oh, it's Sam Howell's show. Indy, they've got Matt Ryan, but I mean,
Yuck.
like exactly the season that they put on, but I mean, they may not want to go for Derek Carr because I think Derek Carr, he's about 28, 29, I think. They
He's not
may,
too old, but he's old enough to
yeah,
where you can't rely on him for a long period of time. You still got to worry about him, 3-4 years down the line. This isn't going to be a long-term solution for anybody.
yeah.
31, 31, older than I
Okay, yeah,
thought he
he's older
was.
than I thought it was too. Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I mean Indy maybe, but I think they're probably gonna want to go young because like I
Yeah.
just said, they brought in Matt Ryan and before that they had Wentz. So I think they're probably thinking, hey, we can just draft our guy.
Hmm.
But I mean, because they would I think Carr's still under contract, so they'd have to trade for him. Um,
They released him.
so oh, they
They were,
released him. Okay,
yeah, they got rid of him. Yeah, so
all right,
he's
yeah.
he's
So
free to negotiate.
I mean, yeah, they may decide to bring in Derek and just be like, "Hey, bro, we're gonna take a QB in this draft, and you're gonna hold the reins until we give him the go." So, I mean, maybe Indy could be one.
Yeah, I get like a lot of the teams out there where I think there's some potential suitors, but then it's like you think about it and you're like, maybe not. Like Washington's a perfect example where they weren't terrible last year, but you still want to give Sam Howell a chance. At the same time, there's no guarantee that Sam Howell is a NFL, high level quarterback, So I could understand them, not being as sold on Howell and wanting to take a flyer on Derek Carr just in case that doesn't work out. 49ers. You could say, if Brock Purdy doesn't get healthy, do we want to bring in a veteran like Derek Carr to, kind of play that Garoppolo role? That doesn't sound terrible, but also maybe you'd just rather have Garoppolo do that. So it's kind of a sign that they're not interested in doing that. So
Yeah,
it's a tough situation where I think Carr is in this middle ground where he's not bad enough to be like your Bridgewater type guy that bounces around and starts when he needs to start. But he's not good enough to go be anybody's franchise quarterback. So I think that
yeah.
makes his free agency kind of interesting.
I think maybe two that people aren't like. I don't know if I haven't heard anybody say this, but I think it's a possible. Like I don't. It would. I think it may be a long shot, but I do still think maybe it's a possibility. Is Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because yeah, they still they're working through whatever they're working with Sam Darnold. Um, but the other quarterback they have is Matt Corral. And then PJ Walker is their third string
Yep.
quarterback. So I don't know. They may try to say, hey, we could probably do something here with Carr. Because
I
I
don't
don't know
hate
how much
that.
faith they have in Darnold. Uh,
If
he
I
was
were,
in open competition with Baker Mayfield going into the season.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then the other one would be possibly New England. The
Ooh,
only reason why I say that is because I know they took Jack Moans, like what was it, 2 or 3 years ago now. But like he, Jones was not having fun in their system last year.
yeah.
Like you saw it all the time on the sideline. Like he's pissed off, and uh, their offensive and defensive coordinators like throwing the ball like 2 yards every play.
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe that's because they didn't trust Mac Jones, or maybe it's just because that was how they called it. Or I mean, they had two different offensive coordinators, so maybe it could have just been dysfunction from the coaches level. But
Yeah.
I mean, they could just say, hey, we could go after Derek Carr and see what we can do.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick loves to recycle guys.
That's an interesting name. That's an interesting team I hadn't thought of. I'm not sure that they'd. Um, I I get the point you're making. I'm not sure they'd want to move off Mac Jones though, but I think the Carolina call is actually really good. And I hadn't thought about that because I just kind of assumed that Carolina was going to go young in the draft. But at the same time, if I'm Carolina, I'm sitting at I think they're at 9. It's not a for sure thing that they get a quarterback that they like. Like we could see a team trade up to 1, take a quarterback like and then that could really get things started where they're sitting at 9. If they can't trade up, they might not be able to get the quarterback they want. So Carolina may be a team where it's like we wait until the draft is over, see if we can get one of these young guys we like at 9. If we can't, then we look towards Carr. That I think would be a good possible. I think he's better than Darnold, so I think that
Yeah.
would be a good possible
No,
landing
yeah,
spot for him.
I don't think he's gonna be there after the draft though. I think
Mm,
if you want to sign him, you're gonna have to sign him before the draft.
yeah,
I
that's a
think.
good point. That's a
I
good
think
point.
he's good enough where teams are gonna have interest.
Somebody
Um,
will.
yeah.
That's a good point. And while we're on this draft, I want to talk to you about this because I think Philly's in an interesting spot in the draft this year, where they're sitting at 10 and they're sitting at 31. The 31 will be whatever; it'll be a end of the first round pick. But rarely do we see teams coming off a Super Bowl loss and a great season. Rarely do you see them picking at 10. So I guess I'm kind of interested what you're hoping that Philly does with that 10th pick.
I honestly, I can't even tell you because they have so many guys that are like, there's about 4, 5 guys that are kind of like key free agents this year that I got to see what they do with them.
Hmm.
Um, it, so it would really just depend with their free agency, like if they're because I think they only have like about 8 million or 10 million or something like that in cap space right now.
Hmm.
But I think I read that Howie Roseman could potentially, with certain moves, free up to 33 million in cap space. And Howie Roseman, ever since he's been with the Eagles, he's been a cap genius. Like I don't like almost every year, me and Trey would have the same conversation on the lead word. How did Howie Roseman sign that guy? He's
Hmm.
got like $2 in cap space, but he went out and signed some free agent.
Hmm.
So I don't even try to follow the cap anymore. I'm just like whatever Howie does,
Yep.
I know he's got it handled. Um, but like I said, I think you got to bring back Javon Hargraves. I think you have to bring back James Bradbury.
Hmm.
Um, I'd like to see TJ Edwards back, but I don't know if that's necessarily either him or Kaiser White. One of those two has to come back, and then I think N'Kobe Dean could maybe replace the other guy. So I mean, just depending on who they're able to bring back. If they can't bring any of those guys back, I would maybe like to go corner. I
Hmm.
think you got to go corner at 10. Or if maybe what you think there's a guy uh, that you can like a really good corner that you can get a little bit later in the first round, trade back to get him. Um, I mean, if they're able to bring back all the guys that they can bring, like that those key guys, I'd be more than happy to have them trade the pick,
Yeah.
get more draft picks for next year, and um, I think they have 2 1s. I think they have a 2, a 3, and like a 5 this year. So even if you get like you package like you trade like the 31st pick, um, and get a few more picks for this year and maybe another first rounder next year, I'd be cool with that. Um, I think they have options though, but like I said, the everything's just going to depend on what Howie Roseman does with this with his cap space, and obviously Jalen Hurts is getting a big payday.
Hmm.
So like I said, the scenarios are they don't bring back Bradbury. I think you got to go. I think you got to go Porter if he's there.
Yep.
Um, unless somehow like you can predict him dropping to like I don't know 15 or something, then trade back and grab him at 15. But I don't see him making it out of the top 10.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm with you with the Bradbury stuff because that was the name that really stuck out to me too. When you said free agents, that's exactly what I thought was Bradbury because that's an interesting guy where he played very good, but I think if I'm looking at this year's draft class and where the Eagles are at, like that's the guy that I think they had the easiest time replacing. Where you're sitting at 10, you can make that pick of Joey Porter, Gonzalez, or I don't know how the scouts and GMs are going to be looking at Ringo after the combine. I think he's going to rise, but there were rumors that Ringo was going to fall to the second round. So it's like if you're the Eagles sitting at 31 and you think Ringo's going to fall to round 2, he's a great pick for you guys at 31. I wasn't able to watch the combine. That's a whole another side rant where I don't know why the combine's only on NFL Network. I don't have NFL Network. I'm a college kid without cable. Can we just please get it on ESPN so I can watch it on ESPN Plus? That's a whole nother conversation about the combine. But he ran well, so I think Ringo will rise up boards a little bit. So he might not be there at 31, but this year's cornerback class, regardless of who it is, there's a lot of good corners this year. Someone will probably bite on Witherspoon too early, make a good corner slide down too. So as much as Bradbury played well, he might be the easiest guy to replace.
Yeah, and like I said, I'd like to see James Bradbury come back because I'm a big if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of guy. Like we know, like James Bradbury and Darius Slay were like the top ranked cornerback pair in the league this year. If they weren't the first ranked cornerback pair, they were in the top 3 and they weren't number 3. So like I feel like it worked. If you can bring them back, bring them back. But it is such a deep cornerback draft where I think that if Bradbury does go somewhere else, you have that 10th pick. So that's fine if we have to replace him with 10. But like I said, I'd like to be able to trade that pick and just open up options, next year too. Because I think that's like something Howie Roseman's done a really good job of. Is he hasn't always hit with his first round picks. Jalen Reagor, obviously, like the big example. Andre Dillard still on the fucking team, getting a contract, doesn't even fucking see the field. But like, as far as like making sure he has draft picks and has a lot of draft capital and he's, signing different free agents, he's been really good at that. So, I said, I'm kind of excited to see how he pulls this off and what he puts on the field next year.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because they made the move for the first round pick for AJ Brown, and they made the move last year for the Saints to get their first round pick. So it's like he's done great things, whether even outside of drafting. He's kind of beat some of these teams on asset management, where he beat the Titans and he beat the Saints. And now this year you're sitting with a great receiver that helped you last year, and you're sitting with 2 picks. So you might be right. Maybe the answer is you don't even bother picking at 10. And you work some magic and see what you can do in trades, because he has done great work in winning some of those trades too. So I like that. I didn't think about that before, but I think that's a very good point. And then did you have anything else that's sitting on top of your mind before we call this? I know it's late, so I don't want to hold either of us here too long. But do you have anything on top of your mind before we call this?
No, I think I'm pretty good. I think I said everything that I could think of.
Yeah. Apologies for the camera or for the Wi-Fi issues. Hopefully that doesn't keep arising itself in the future. But I hope people enjoyed the episode nonetheless. So, Chad, I enjoyed talking to you today and yesterday on the lead word. So we'll have to do it again in the future.
Yeah, man, definitely. Maybe we can get you on the lead word one day when Trey's there too. That way we get a whole thing going. I don't know.
Oh, look at that. Anytime, just let me know.
Yep.
All right. We'll see you later.
All right. Bye.